Hi, my name is Bailey Parker. I'm the Communications Director here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. This presentation is not meant to serve as a substitute for reading the various laws discussed, seeking legal counsel, or otherwise requesting the department guidance and/or interpretations on the law it administers and enforces. This presentation is merely serving as an introduction and overview of the topic. I'm not an attorney. You don't want legal advice from me. It'd be really bad advice. So let's get into the bulk of it. What is identity theft? So identity theft is when somebody uses your personal or financial information without your permission. So they're going to do things like buy things with your credit cards that they stole, your debit cards, or your financial information. Or they may actually open up new credit cards in your name, maybe even a loan. They could open up a utility account in your name. So they use your information to open up a new cell phone line or an electricity account through the local electricity provider. So don't think it's just credit cards and loans. This can go as far as utility accounts. They can actually steal your tax refund. Tax fraud was the #1 reported way of identity theft to us in 2021. This is an unfortunate reality where somebody goes to file their taxes and they're informed by the IRS, you already submitted them. That's when they usually find out they've been a victim of tax fraud. They can actually use your health insurance to get medical care, or they can use your information to apply for insurance. And they can pretend to be you if they're arrested. If they have enough of your information, say they have a fake ID or they know your social security number and they're arrested for whatever reason, they can use your information and name. We want you to keep an open mind about scammers and identity thieves. The reason being is they're everywhere now. So they contact people in any way they can, on the phone, through direct mail, so actual pieces of mail in your mailbox, text messages, emails, fake websites, in person. Scammers are shameless, obviously. They're criminals who don't care how they get your information or money. They just want it. So no matter the method, the ultimate goal of a scam is to get your money or your personal information, because your personal information could make them money. How does it usually happen? Majority of the times it's you. You answer the phone, you answer the email, you click on the link, and you give over a piece of information that they're looking for. A lot of times identity thieves will already know a good chunk about you. It's called spear phishing, where they already know they've got the puzzle of your identity in front of them, and they're missing just 2 pieces of the puzzle. They contact you and they ask specific questions and convince you to give over those last 2 pieces. So say they have the first 5 numbers of your social security number, because if you were born before 2013, then that means that the first 5 digits of your social security number are a calculation of when you were born and where you were born. If they got that information offline or somewhere else, they just need those last 4 digits from you. And if they call acting like your bank or some other organization you may trust, you could give that over to them. That's just a quick example. Security breaches. So this is an unfortunate reality that we're going to have to deal with. This year, we have received more security breach notices than ever in the past. We're the state agency that receives security breach notices from companies. If consumers' information has been breached in some type of way, we've received more than in any previous fiscal year in the past. So know that this happens, and even more reason to place the security freeze and fraud alerts. Lost or stolen wallets. This happened to me. It just so happened to be an unfortunate time to have my wallet stolen. My new job that was 5 hours away needed my physical social security card, a copy of the physical card. So I drove the 5 hours down. They took a copy of it, drove 5 hours back up to my home to pack and move. And in that time, my wallet was stolen and I had forgotten to take out my social security card. This was about 7 years ago. Luckily, I was able to lock things down before anything bad happened, but you better believe they tried to use my credit cards, debit cards, and even tried to buy a car in my name. Theft by family or friends. This is unfortunately common. I'm going to say unfortunately a lot when we talk about identity theft. Child identity theft, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end, is usually perpetrated by members of family or close friends who you would trust to keep your information safe, right? So this does happen. And dumpster diving is still a thing. All those pre-approvals you get in the mail for credit cards, insurance, even your explanation of benefits for your health care coverage, that all has private information on it. And if you're not shredding it or disposing of it properly, criminals can take that and use it on their own. And stolen mail. If you're still paying for things by check and putting it in your mailbox, please stop doing that. You can still pay by check. Just make sure you're taking it into the post office, the actual building, not just the blue box. Drop it in there, and that's the safest way if you're still going to pay by check. It's so easy to break into the blue boxes and even into your locked personal mailbox. The number one rule is don't give over any information, private information, whether it's your date of birth, social security number, full name, or financial information to somebody who you can't verify who they are on the other end of the contact, whatever it may be. So, federal changes to law. I want to mention here, if any of the slides after this point have the little blue oval and then blue writing, it means that there were changes in 2018 because of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So some major changes happened to both mostly security freezes, but some to fraud alerts. So it really was a part of the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act. The Fair Credit Reporting Act was also kind of bundled in this area. It was the majority of the provisions were effective in September of 2018. The reason the Fair Credit Reporting Act really came to be was because in 2017, don't know if you remember, there was a massive security breach of Experian. No, Equifax, sorry. Don't want to throw Experian under the bus when it was Equifax. So they had a massive breach of 147 million Americans. I was one of those people that got the notice saying that my information had been breached. The likelihood of at least one or two of you in the audience here also having received that notice is pretty high. So before the Fair Credit Reporting Act was put into place, security freezes were not free and ranged in price from $3 to $12 based on what state you lived in. Now, federal law requiring free security freezes has some exceptions, but across the board, like 99.9% of the time, they're now free. And that's because of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So other changes, we got the free security freezes here. The protected consumer freeze became a thing. We'll talk about that at the end. That includes child identity theft. Adjustments to fraud alerts and active duty alert provisions for military members. And then active duty free monitoring was available to active military members also. So this is just a general overview. Obviously, these acts are hundreds of pages, but this is what we're going to focus on today. Again, if you see any blue texts in the upcoming slides, it means those were adjustments in 2018 or additions for the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Fraud alerts. So a fraud alert is a notification that you can add to your credit report telling anyone who is receiving a credit application. So let's use an example of a credit card company, Capital One. It's the first one that came to my head because I saw a commercial earlier this morning. So say Capital One receives a credit application from somebody claiming to be you. If you have a fraud alert on your credit report, what's going to happen is Capital One is going to be notified because say you're applying for a credit card, that's going to require a credit check. So they're going to have to look at your credit report and get your credit score. They're not going to be able to do that until after they verify your information because you have a fraud alert. So before processing that application and actually pulling your credit, they're going to have to take extra steps to verify your identity. So it puts a pause in that credit check process. And requires that the creditor take extra steps to verify your identity before they do that official pull. We'll talk about the different types of fraud alerts, but when we're talking about pulling your credit, usually it's pulling credit from the 3 major credit reporting agencies, so Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Here are the different types. So there is a temporary fraud alert, or just known as the fraud alert. This lasts 1 year. It actually only used to be 90 days until 2018 with the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and then it expires. You can add one to your credit report at any time for any reason. That also was something different. You used to have to officially be a victim of identity theft with an identity theft affidavit in order to place a fraud alert, but not anymore. And you can renew it as many times as you like. Then there's the active duty fraud alert. This is for active duty service members on assignment away from home. It lasts 1 year unless you remove it earlier. It's the same thing for the regular fraud alert. And then there's an extended fraud victim alert. This extended alert goes from 1 year to 7 years. It's specifically designed for victims of credit fraud or official identity theft. In order to get an identity theft affidavit, and if you need us to help you with that, that's what our identity theft unit does. But in order to become an official victim of identity theft, you have to file a police report. So you're gonna have to get information from your creditors, if there's been fraudulent charges, things like that. So file a police report and then fill out the identity theft form. You can get that from us or from the FTC. And together those things form an identity theft report, an official report. So if you had one of those, you could file for free an extended fraud victim alert. That will last for 7 years. So the frequently asked questions about fraud alerts. Does a fraud alert affect my credit? I think that's what most people are concerned about. No, it has no effect on the content of your credit report or on your score number. If you place a fraud alert, your score is not going to go down or up, but it may limit your ability to get those instant approvals. I underlined instant there because it doesn't mean you're not going to get approvals for other loans, but the ones where they say get instant approval by putting in your information for whether it's a credit card or a car loan, whatever type of credit you're applying for. So there may be a delay in instant approval. Reason being is the systems they use for instant approval may not have the capacity to move past a fraud alert when it comes up. But if it's an actual person, an actual creditor, or a company who's looking at it, they will say, okay, we'll verify your identity and then we can approve you. So just think of that before you try and apply for instant approval. When does it make sense to get a fraud alert? If you are worried about any misuse of your personal information, a fraud alert is a great starting place for an added layer of security. But also, it's a good option for individuals who don't want to completely lock down your report. So say you're going to buy a house in 6 months. You're going to be shopping around for a mortgage in 6 months to a year, and you don't want to put a full freeze on that you're going to have to thaw or lift. So you're going to put a fraud alert for the time being and use that as an option instead of the full freeze. It's easy to remove fraud alerts ahead of time if you want to, but you also can just let it expire if you find that your information hasn't been compromised. And you can just, it'll just go away after that year. How do you place it? So we say one call, that's all. You just need to contact one of the major credit reporting agencies to place it, so Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, and you will need to provide some specific information when you contact them. So you'll have to have a state-issued photo ID, proof of address provided via a piece of mail, so like a utility bill, something like that. And then an identity theft report if you're seeking the extended alert. You're going to have that together so they can prove you've been a true victim of identity theft. Again, it's free. totally free. You're not going to have to pay for it. So if you want to go to this, this is a great starting place, a great extra layer of security. I gave a presentation, what, now 2 weeks ago. It was the Wednesday webinar 2 weeks ago where we talked about extra security measures. And the key point I made at the end of the presentation is no security method is 100% foolproof. Keep that in mind. But the more layers of security we can add on, the better we're protected, right? So if I just have a shirt on and I get shot, that's going to affect me a lot more than if I have multiple layers of clothing and then maybe a bulletproof vest on, right? So there's going to be different levels of security that you can use, and the fraud alert is a great option, especially if you're looking to apply for credit or open up any new accounts close here in the future. Okay, the security freeze. I lovingly call this the Big Daddy. So this, you're locking it down with the security freeze. It's sometimes called a credit freeze instead of a security freeze. This prevents you or others from opening up new accounts in your name, and it lasts until you lift it. There's no expiration here. Only certain people can see your file when a freeze is in place. If you want to look at your credit reports, you can. You can't put any new accounts on your credit report, but you can check your credit report. Creditors from current accounts. So if you have a loan open up and you have a mortgage, your mortgage lender will be able to look at your current credit file. Some government agencies, like associated with child support, so they're very specific agencies who would be looking at your credit to see what your credit utilization is, what the amount of debt that you have, things like that. This would also apply to probably government student loan providers. Companies that you pay to monitor your credit file. So say you are paying for a service to do identity theft monitoring or credit report monitoring. I'm not going to name any company names because we're not here to recommend paid services. But if you pay somebody to do that for you, these companies could look at your credit file even with a security freeze. So this was the area that the Fair Credit Reporting Act made a lot of changes. So in general, it's available to anyone, and it was available to anyone even before the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And this, what I want to say too, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today may just be in South Carolina. So the security freeze before may have cost money in a different state, but it's always been free in South Carolina. So keep in mind that some of these may just be South Carolina laws, but if there's blue, that means federal trumps what South Carolina had in place. So what you have to do in order to place the security freeze is submit a request to each of the credit reporting agencies or CRAs, and you have to do it by one of three ways: by certified letter or email or telephone. So there was actually only 2 ways to do it before. You could only do it by certified letter or email. Now you can do it by phone because of FCRA. The credit reporting agency must place the freeze. It used to be 5 days. Now it's within 1 business day if it's by phone or email, and then 3 business days if it's processed by old school mail. So within 5 days, the credit reporting agencies must send the consumer written confirmation of the request. So they have to tell you, hey, we got your request and we're going to do it. And then they're going to provide you a PIN or a password. The PIN may have a different length based on the credit reporting agency that you're going to. So it may vary based on the credit reporting agency, but they will give you a PIN or password of some sort that you're going to need to keep in a safe place. So this is a way to remove, including a way to verify and authenticate you when you call to either thaw or lift the freeze. So this is an extra layer of security to the security freeze. And while the freeze is in place, the credit reporting agencies must notify creditors that the account or the report is frozen. So say you forget you have a freeze, you want to go buy a new car and get a new car loan. The lender that you're using goes to attempt to check your credit to see what deal they can give you. If that happens, the credit reporting agency must notify that creditor that the report is frozen. There's two ways to get rid of the security freeze. So you can temporarily remove it, or we say thaw, like you're thawing something that's frozen. So what you do here is it's for a certain time frame. You can do this by email, telephone, or mail, and it's for a specific period of time. The credit reporting agency must thaw it within 1 hour if it's by telephone or email, or 3 business days if it's by mail. So an example here would be, again, we're looking to buy a car, right? So I already know I've got my credit reports frozen. I need to thaw them because I want to keep the freeze. It makes me feel safe, makes me feel like my information is under lock and key, but I know in order to get a new loan, I need to thaw it. So I'm going to start shopping for my car loan on June 1st. And I'm going to take 60 days to shop around, because you always should shop around, right? The more lenders you talk to and compare rates, it's in your best interest as a consumer. So June 1st to July 31st, you let each of the credit reporting agencies know, and you're going to have your PIN to do this and verify your identity. Say, I want it to be thawed during this time frame, but then on August 1, goes back to being frozen. That's a great option to keep it in place, but you're going to shop around for some credit. If you want to completely get rid of it, you can request it by email, telephone, mail. If you do this by telephone or email, they have to lift it within 1 hour of you fulfilling the request, so giving them over your PIN and verifying your identity, or 3 business days if by mail. So the frequently asked questions. Does it affect my credit? No, it doesn't affect the contents of your credit reports or your credit score. But again, if you're looking to apply for credit, you're going to have to thaw or lift it. I've heard some complaints from consumers of, this is a major headache. I have to keep these PINs, and then I have to verify. I have to have additional points of verification outside of my PIN, and it's a hassle to do this. So I'm not going to do it. What I tell consumers is personally, yes, it may be a little bit of a headache to place it and lift it if you're going to, but I think it's worth that little bit of a headache for the much larger migraine that you may experience down the road if you become a victim of identity theft that could have been prevented with the freeze. So that's just my advice there. Why should I place a freeze on my credit reports? Kind of the same thing for fraud alerts. So it's this added layer of security. Let's say, oh gosh, this shows you that I'm not in like personal protection gear. I'm not super versed, but say you've got some chainmail mesh that might give you a little extra added protection from a sword. But if you have multiple layers of that, you're gonna have more protection. So the fraud alert would be just like 1 layer of that chainmail, and then a security freeze would be like, I don't know, a full set of body armor, okay? Sorry, that's probably pretty cheesy. If you're concerned about your personal information being misused, this is the strongest option that you have for your credit report. When identity theft gets to your credit report, that's when it's really hard to remove. So the earlier you recognize something on your credit report, the better. If something's been on there for a year and you haven't challenged it, disputed it, or blocked it, it almost kind of adds this validity to it, right? The longer it's there, the longer you don't notice, the more the credit reporting agencies are like, yeah, I mean, it's there. It's been there for 3 years and they didn't notice. So that's why I say this is the strongest option for your credit report, because you can't open up new lines of credit. Then that means that other people trying to be you can't do that either. How do you place it? We've already talked about this just a little bit, but just as a reminder, you're going to need to contact each of the credit reporting agencies. You can do it over the phone, internet, or by mail. You're going to have to provide much more information than if you were to apply for the fraud alert. Your full name, any maiden names, things like that, previously used names, full addresses, including your street address, apartment number, whatever else, the place where you live. Some recent addresses too, so previous addresses that you no longer live at, your social security number. That one especially makes people nervous. I got a question yesterday of, well, should I really trust these credit reporting agencies with my social security number to place the security freeze? They already have it, right? They already have all your credit reporting information. You giving it to them is basically them just verifying your identity. So yeah, you're going to need to give that information over, your date of birth. And then if you have been a true victim of identity theft and you've got that report, you need to provide a copy of that identity theft report. If you don't have a security freeze in place, and you're not going to be opening up any new lines of credit, say in the next year or even couple of years, say you're older and you're just, you're done applying for credit. You have your home, you lived in the same home for however many years, you're not opening up any new credit cards. This is a great time to place a security freeze, because then you're not even going to have to think about it, right? You're not going to have to think about lifting it or thawing it. So please, please, please think about this as an option to really protect your identity. Okay, I want to mention this real quick before I give some time at the end here, because we're slotted to go until 11:15. Active duty alerts is for active military consumers. It's for 1 year. So this is, we talked about this earlier with the fraud alert, but I just wanted to put this into military considerations. 1 year and can renew. And again, it's the same thing. It makes businesses take extra steps to verify your identity. But in addition here from the Fair Credit Reporting Act is, it also automatically removes active military consumers from pre-screened offers for credit cards or insurance or any other type of pre-screened offers. So that's a really good option, because if you're getting all of these pre-approvals for credit cards in your mailbox and you're overseas, it's very easy for somebody to steal that mail and start opening up those credit cards for you. So free credit monitoring is also available to active duty military. It notifies of any material changes or additions to your credit report. This was added in October of 2019, and that active duty military member is going to be notified in one way or another. Usually you get to choose what it is, either by mobile app, email, or texts, of certain changes to your file. Some of those changes could include changes of address, payments that are more than 30 days late, bankruptcy, and the 30 days late is an addition with the Fair Credit Reporting Act, bankruptcy information, foreclosures, liens, and new accounts opened in your name. Here is a general table that kind of breaks things down into what you might want to be placing. So fraud alerts, just have to contact one of the credit reporting agencies. An extended alert, which is the one where you need the identity theft report, you have to contact each of the credit reporting agencies. And security freezes, again, every one of those credit reporting agencies. What I want to mention here is on the credit reports, if you do file a fraud alert, it entitles you to one more credit report from each of the credit reporting agencies for free. And then the extended alert is 2 more within that 12-month time period. The security freeze doesn't give you any more copies of your credit report. Protecting your child's identity. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act in 2018 created the protected consumer freeze. This is for parents, guardians, or representatives for either minors. So when it comes to credit reports, it's under the age of 16. So it's not 18 and under, it's under the age of 16. Or incapacitated adults. So this means you can create and freeze somebody who qualifies as a protected consumer, and you can freeze their credit file for free. It's kind of the same process as placing a regular freeze. You're just going to need a lot more information. You're going to need proof of connection to that individual if you are their guardian or representative. In the Fair Credit Reporting Act, It just changed some timelines here. Within 5 days, the credit reporting agencies must send that written confirmation, and then also give you that PIN or the password to remove it. And if you do place it on say a minor's credit report, when they turn 16, it will end. It will fall off. So you don't have to do that yourself. If you are going to check your child's credit report, a child should not just automatically have a credit report. It's usually created when they go to initiate their first point of credit. So when if they buy their first car at the age of 16 and open up a loan, something like that, or get their first credit card. If you want to check a child's credit report or place that freeze, you have to contact each of the credit reporting agencies, and you can ask for a manual search just to make sure. Say you don't have the freeze, but you're not sure if your child has a credit report already, you can actually ask them to search for it. They'll check for files relating to the child's name and social security number, and only for files related to that child's social security number. It may vary based on the credit reporting agency and will likely require a written request with that extra verification of kinship. Free credit reports. We've talked a lot about credit reports, right? Well, how do you get them for free? The place we're going to tell you is annualcreditreport.com. They are the only place authorized by federal law to give you free credit reports and nothing else, right? They may charge you for a credit score, because credit scores and credit reports are separate. Yes, the score is made up of things on your credit report, but they don't come together usually, right? You may get that from your credit card company or another service you pay for, but these do not contain credit scores. We tell people do this review carefully at least once a year. Annualcreditreport.com is also not going to sell your information to third-party buyers. There are some major companies out there that say they'll give you your credit reports for free, and they will, but they're a business. They need to make money, and if you're to read the terms and conditions you sign, you know that they're going to sell your information to third-party buyers who are going to send you free approvals for insurance, credit cards, things like that. You can actually get one free credit report from each of these agencies every week until the end of this year. I don't think you need to look at your credit report every single week, but just know that this is an option because of the pandemic. They started this at the beginning of the pandemic because so many people were losing their jobs. So take advantage of this opportunity. We hope to see you at another webinar in the future. I hope you learned something today and that you'll consider these options as another added layer of security to protecting your identity. Thanks so much. Stay safe and happy and healthy.